Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of the Playoff Push podcast. It feels so good to be back. I am sorry for that long break I took, finals and all the other stuff in my life. We're really clogging up my upload schedule, but I'm so happy to be back. We're going to lead off today with an MLB free agent recap to this point. We'll also follow it up with AL recap for looking into next MLB season, as well as the National League and the playoff outlook for the NFL season once week 18 on Sunday concludes. So we have a lot of stuff on our plate as well as some guests in the near future. And I'm so happy to be back. And let's dive in to the 2024 MLB free agency. Now, let's start out with the guy who everyone is thinking of this class. Juan Soto signed a 15-year, $765 million deal with the New York Mets. Soto will be crossing New York City to head to Queens to make around $51 million a year on average, along with a $75 million signing bonus. He will not be a free agent again until 2040 unless he decides to choose his opt-out in the 2030 season and leave $460 million on the contract, which we all know is pretty unlikely. I mean, getting a $765 million deal is not something that happens every day. Quite frankly, it is the second largest contract in MLB history by average annual value, only behind Shohei Ohtani's deal last year with the Dodgers, which is hovering around $70 million a year. But he is way ahead of third, fifth, sixth, and everyone below that. Now, this is huge for the Mets. With the potential of losing Pete Alonso, they get in a guy who played 157 games last year with 41 homers, 109 RBI, and a 288 batting average clip with an OPS of 988 and led the Yankees to their first World Series since 2009. And we've known that Soto can ball for a while. I mean, he's already above 200 career homers, and the kid was born in 98. He is 26 years old, already above 200 career bombs. And in addition to his regular season stats, 327 batting average in the postseason alone, along with 4 homers, 9 RBI, and a 1.1 OPS. I mean, we are quite literally watching a legend in the making. So Juan Soto, the lefty hitter, heading to the New York Mets for one of the biggest deals we've ever seen in MLB. Will it pay off? Who knows? He's gone from my Yankees, and he's heading crosstown to Queens. Next up, we got another pretty big deal. This one was more recent than the others. I believe it was around 4 or 5 days ago. Corbin Burnes, starting pitcher, formerly of the Brewers and Orioles, is now heading his way to Arizona, inking a pretty solid deal for a pitcher, a 6-year contract, making him a lot of money. Now, Corbin Burnes was a stellar pitcher last year, 15-9 with a 2.92 ERA and a 1.1 whip. So he was doing exactly what he needed to do in Baltimore and helped to push them to where they were. However, this contract is big. It is 6 years at $210 million, including a 10 mil signing bonus. So he's averaging around $35 million a year heading into his age 30 season. And it will start with 31.6 mil in 25 and 26 with a potential opt-out before the 2027 season, in which he will gain $36.6 million from 27 through 2030 and will become an unrestricted free agent in 2031 at the age of 36. That's what we're looking like with Corbin Burnes, and this is pretty big for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, they were one of the more disappointing teams this last year. Of course, had a great year in 2023, kind of choked in this last one. But now Burnes is going to be a part of one of the best rotations in baseball, along with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, two guys who absolutely showed out. And we also know what Eduardo Rodriguez can do. He's no stranger to some good pitching seasons. Back with the Red Sox, he had a year in which he put together a 10-6 record with a 3.85 ERA, along with a 3.82 and a 3.81 in 2 other years. Had a 3.30 in 2023 with Detroit before kind of not doing too great in 10 games last year with Arizona. But this deal is huge potential for Arizona to get maybe a top 5 rotation in the league. And with a solid bullpen, and if they can buff up this lineup a bit more, they did trade for Josh Naylor from the Cleveland Guardians. But if they can buff up maybe center field or potentially catcher, they could have another chance to run it back to a World Series. I mean, this is a lot of potential for this Diamondback staff, and it's only coming up because of Corbin Burnes doing what he needed to do and signing down in Arizona. Next up, I mean, the Dodgers are just money printers, and we've learned that at this point. Blake Snell is heading down to Los Angeles from San Francisco. A 5-year, $182 million deal with a $52 million signing bonus for an average of $36.4 million a year. He will be an unrestricted free agent in 2031 as a 38-year-old, but he's making some good money. I mean, Blake Snell's been putting up stellar year after stellar year. Of course, a two-time Cy Young in MLB, has a career 23.4 WAR and a career 3.19 ERA. His two Cy Young seasons being with Tampa in 2018 when he was 21-5 with a 1.89 ERA, as well as 2023 with San Diego when he was 14-9 with a 2.25. He also received MVP votes in both of those years. Blake Snell's a guy who we know has the potential to be a top-tier pitcher in baseball. And the Dodgers buffing up their rotation once again, even with the rumors still surrounding that they could get Roki Sasaki from Japan. Now looking at a rotation involving Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, potentially Shohei Ohtani coming back, and then a bunch of guys in the back like Tony Gonsolin or Dustin May who could come in and shut it down. Their bullpen's also incredible. Michael Kopech, Blake Trinan, Brusdar Graterol. We know why this team won the World Series, and we know why they have the potential to run it back. One of the highest potential lineups in the league. Will Smith, amazing catcher. You got Freeman, you got Lux, Betts, Chris Taylor, Tommy Edman, Michael Conforto, and Mookie. I mean, man, Mookie could play everywhere. He played some second base last year. He played some shortstop. He played some right field. I mean, this Dodgers lineup, man. And it just seems like they get money out of thin air. Ohtani is a one-man wrecking crew by himself. Adding Blake Snell, a two-time Cy Young winner, to this already loaded rotation, already loaded pitching staff, already loaded team could be a big issue for the rest of this league. Now, interestingly enough, Alex Bregman is still a free agent. I mean, Bregman's a guy who I'm hoping the Yankees could make a run at. A stellar player throughout his career, had a 1.015 OPS in 2019 and has a constant, 800 in 4 other years, as well as a 926 in 2018. Had his worst year this past year with a 768 OPS, but he is still a top, probably consensus 5 third baseman. He's a guy who can give you good numbers at the third base slot, which is slowly starting to decline in terms of success. Shortstop's heading up, third base heading down with Arenado getting older and Bregman even getting older. It's just a lack of elite third baseman like we previously seen. Like all-time third baseman, I mean, we got Beltre, we got so many other guys. But at this point in time, there's not too many of them. You got Schmidt, you got George Brett. And now I think Bregman's one of the best guys left. And even he is not playing all that amazing, but he's still a huge guy you're going to want to sign. 191 career homers and a career OPS of 849. So a pretty good guy here that you're going to want to try to make a run at if you're struggling in the middle of the lineup section of your batting order. But he is still a free agent at this point. And another guy who's also still a free agent is Anthony Santander, coming from the Baltimore Orioles. Had a career year last year with 44 home runs and 102 RBI, along with an OPS of 814. I know 814 might not seem like a career year, but 44 homers, you take that any day. Played 155 games with 140 hits. I mean, he's just a guy, if you want a bomb, you can chuck him in, and odds are he's hitting that thing far. He's not going to get the biggest contract we've ever seen, but 155 career homers and an OPS of 776 is not bad at all. He could be a really good five, six hole hitter for a contender such as, the Yankees or even a team such as, one of those AL Central teams. Maybe put him in Cleveland. He could be a good four or a good five in the order to try to push that lineup over the edge and see what they could do, especially after trading Josh Naylor. So those are two pretty big guys who have still not signed. How about we get to a few more? Pete Alonso, still looking for his next team. The Polar Bears moving on from Queens after slugging 34 homers with an OPS of 788 last year. Alonso is one of the best power hitters of this era. 226 homers and an 853 career OPS. I mean, he's 30 years old, so he's a pretty old guy, around the same age as Judge was when he signed his contract. Of course, not Judge, but similar in terms of power levels. I mean, looking at Alonso's career, if you were to rank them based on homers, he had 53 in 2019 for his rookie campaign. He had 46 last 2 years ago in 2023, 40 in 2022, 37 in 2021, 34 in 2024. And he only had 16 in 2020 because it was a shortened season. In 57 games, he had 16 homers, which, if it wasn't for Luke Voit, would be in the home run race for the leader. But Alonso is just like a perennial power hitter. And he's, of course, a guy you can chuck in at first base. He'll give you solid enough defense. Won't hit for too high of an average, a career 249 hitter. But hey, when you have 226 homers and probably would be over 30 homers every single year if they were full seasons, I mean, this is a guy you need to make a push for. There are two more remaining free agents who I want to talk about. Both, I mean, still free agents. The first one is Jack Flaherty. Coming from the Dodgers, getting his World Series ring, he's going to look for his next squad. Still has not found it yet. But Flaherty used to be one of the most elite pitchers in the league. A 2.75 ERA in 2019 in 33 games with St. Louis, and just has not been himself these last few years. Put up a good year last year, 3.17 ERA in 28 games with both the Dodgers and the Tigers. But Flaherty is a guy who the stuff is there. What I think is you need to go to a team with a good pitching coach, a guy who can get him back in his groove. Because when Flaherty is healthy and pitching well, he made that Cardinals team good. I mean, sure, they had Arenado later on, same with Goldschmidt. But that rotation was really what made them stand out, especially in 2021. I mean, they were a solid team. And Jack Flaherty was the one leading the charge, showing guys that he knows how to throw a baseball. He was leading it with Adam Wainwright, a guy who's like a perennial pitcher of this generation, recently retired, and a guy who had a surprisingly good year, Kwang Hyun Kim. But Flaherty and Wainwright mainly led that, along with a shutdown bullpen of Alex Reyes, Giovanni Gallegos, and Genesis Cabrera. But Jack Flaherty has potential to be a top 10 pitcher in this league if he has a team that can support him with run support to give him the record edge, and also get that breaking ball back. It's kind of been lacking these last few years when you look at spin rate and when you look at the velocity that he's been throwing. But I mean, still pitching to a 3.17 ERA in your comeback year is not bad at all, along with 194 strikeouts and a whip of 1.07, which, if you don't remember, was better than Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns was a 1.1. So, of course, potential's there. Jack Flaherty's still on the board. Any contender who needs a guy to fill the 3 or the 4 spot in the rotation should take a deep look at Flaherty. He has potential to be one of the better pitchers in this league, and he's just laying right there waiting for a shot. One more still free agent I want to touch on is a closing pitcher, Tanner Scott. Went from the Marlins to the Padres at the trade deadline and did what he did best, a 1.75 ERA this year. Absolutely shut down, 22 saves in 72 innings. Just pitched his heart out, holding batters to a 179 average with a 113 whip. Again, a 175 ERA. Are we serious? This dude's casually having one of the better relief seasons of the last decade, but was overshadowed by guys such as Emmanuel Clase and Mason Miller, who were doing similar jobs, but not as known. I mean, Tanner Scott is, a bit on the older side. He's 30 years old, and he's just been pitching really rough until these last couple years. I mean, he had a good season in 2020 with Baltimore with a 1.31 in 25 games. Other than that, he's never had a year below a 4 beyond 2023, 2024, and 2020, in which he pitched to a 2.31 in 2023, a 1.75 in 2024, and a 1.31 in 2020. But other than that, it goes 4.31, 4.78, 5.17, 5.4, and a 10.80. So he's really been ramping it up these last few years, really improving his mechanics. He looks much better releasing the ball compared to when he did earlier in his career. It's so much harder for the hitters to see the way he throws now. And I mean, he's just a guy who you can throw into any bullpen and just get a solid reliever that you can rely on to put in situations. Like I can't rely on Clay Holmes last year. He really scared me. But when you look at his advanced stats, 96th percentile in pitching run value, 95 in fastball run value, 75 in breaking, 57 in off speed. So as you see, the off speed slowly gets less in terms of run value. But Tanner just releases the ball and lets it rip. 100 percentile in exit velocity, meaning he has one of the lower average exit velocities in the entire MLB. xERA 90th, xBA 90th, fastball velo 91st. He's a great pitcher. His only issue is that he just walks a lot of guys. He's 7th percentile in walk rate, which is not good to say the least. But other than that, 99th percentile hard hit percentage, 100th percentile average exit velocity. I mean, all these stats point towards Tanner Scott being a guy who you need in your bullpen. If you can work on getting the walks in control, this dude could have a Emmanuel Clase type year in which he just becomes absolutely shut down and untouchable. Tanner Scott is a must seek out for GMs the remainder of this offseason. And we only have a couple more guys to really go over to get the general sense of this offseason. How about we line it up with Max Fried signing with my Yankees on an 8-year contract? Fried, coming from the Braves, had the lowest qualified starting pitcher ERA over the last, I want to say, 5 years. But he signed a huge deal, 8 years, $218 million with a $20 million signing bonus, 27.25 a year, and will be a free agent in 2033. I do not believe there is any opt-out, but he's making 14.5 mil the next 2 year and then 31.5 until the contract ends after the 2032 season. There's a full no trade clause. This is huge. After a 1 year, $15 million deal with the Braves due to arbitration ended, he got his bag. Funny enough, not a Scott Boras client. We hate Scott Boras around here, but just a great deal for Fried and a potential great deal for the Yankees. I mean, you're getting a guy who's proved himself these last 4 or 5 years, wanted to be a Yankee, 24 career WAR, a career 3.07 ERA, 2-time All-Star, 3-time pitching Gold Glove, a 2021 World Series winner, and even a Silver Slugger if for some reason he has to hit. But he's put up great ERA numbers every year he's been in the league. I mean, when a 4.02 is your worst ERA ever in a season, that's pretty good, especially when he's been below 3 4 seasons out of his 8. So Max Fried, a huge signing in this atmosphere, giving the Yankees a big chance to help run back that World Series. And what they needed was to bolster the rotation. And getting Fried 100% did that. I mean, he's just giving good innings every year. 185 in 2022, 174 last year. His only concern is injuries. He does get injured a lot. But when he pitches, he'll give you a good 7 innings every game. Again, his issue is just the injuries. And if the Yankees can find a way to keep that under control, they may have found themselves a guy who's worthy of starting in the number 1 slot over Garrett Cole. The issue is the Yankees' doctors are notoriously horrendous, as given the last few years, especially with Anthony Rizzo. Who knows? We will see. But Max Fried is a guy to look out for this year with his massive contract that he just signed. Where will this go? Hopefully, we'll bring the Bronx back to the World Series. And that's really it for the big moves. I mean, the Yankees got Paul Goldschmidt on a 1 year deal. Rangers, Jock Peterson on a 2 year deal. Um, what else really happened? Walker Buehler to the Red Sox for a 1 year. Sean Manaea to the Mets. Glaber to the Tigers. I mean, there's a lot of miniature deals. McCutchen back to the Pirates. Not I said Pablo Sandoval. Patrick Sandoval going from the Angels to the Red Sox. Jesus Luzardo was traded to Philadelphia to give them a solid starting pitcher in their 5 slot and not having to rely on a guy they call up from the minors every week. So that's pretty good for them as hopeful. Max Kepler, a 1 year deal from Minnesota to Philadelphia. The Yankees re signed Jonathan Loaiziga to a 1 year deal. So a whole lot of 1 year deals here. Just trying to see what moves teams can make to really improve themselves. But that's it for the big free agents. We will go over AL, NL recaps in future episodes as well. And we'll also get some NBA stuff in here, as well as the usual interview episodes with some guests. We have a lot of stuff coming up here on the Playoff Push podcast. And I would like to thank you for listening to episode 27 of the Playoff Push podcast. I'm so happy to be back, and I really hope you enjoy this episode and stick with us for the future. Now, have a great rest of your day.